tuning in. If you have not joined us before, this is our third time, I believe,
Yeah.
doing a collab. This is Mark. He has his own channel on YouTube called the Montana Viking. So go ahead and check that out. I'll leave a link in the description for his channel. And we are doing videos there as well that he's releasing. And he is currently putting out a lot more content than I am. Are you still doing the daily basis thing?
I have one coming out tomorrow. I'm kind of
Okay.
excited now. But really 4 times a week I try.
Four
That's my
times.
goal.
That's a lot. And that's a lot of work there to do that.
Oh
So
yeah.
I congratulate on you on that effort, on that goal. So, but yeah, he's putting out a lot of content, and we are talking about for his channel marijuana and alcohol and their usage as Christians, somewhere along those lines.
Yeah.
So be sure to check that out. But right now, what we're talking about right now is the Billy Graham rule right here. And so just starting out here, I'm sure many of you, if you live in the United States, heard in the news outlets a few years ago, back in 2017, the news outlets started reporting about Mike Pence and this rule that he would follow, where he would not spend time alone with another female that was not his wife. And I'm sure, I'm not sure if he has any daughters there, but if he did, or his daughters or something like that. So all these news outlets reported that, and they're like having a big hoopla about it. Hoopla, whatever that saying is. But it's interesting, as I was looking into that, that wasn't something that I could see that happened recently. They had to go back all the way to 2002 to start reporting about it in 2017. 2002, Mike Pence's wife said, yeah, this is his rule that he follows, that he doesn't meet with other females that aren't his spouse, or alone anyways. And so the news outlets didn't like that. And they were saying, well, that just, that's discrimination, all these different things here. And more recently, this type of thing has even gone to trial. In 2019, there was a cop who was a deacon at a Baptist church in 2019. He was a senior cop, and he was ordered to train in this female trainee, and he refused to do it because he followed the Billy Graham rule that he said, well, if I'm training her, I'm going to be spending a lot of time in the squad car, and I can't do that. I'm a deacon at this church. That would not be a good thing. Now, the Billy Graham rule, when you look back to when he was talking about it, there's two reasons why he did this. First one was so that there wouldn't be any temptation there. If you're one-on-one with a female, there's possibility being temptation there. But the second thing is that, and this is something that we've been seeing a lot in the past decade, but is just these false accusations being brought up of stuff that happened in private with this other party. And we're seeing that, even before 2000, who are they? Swagger and Baker, they both, they were unfaithful in their marriages. And, that really affected their ministries. That was like, because of that happened. If they had maybe been following the Billy Graham rule, then that temptation wouldn't have been there. And the incident wouldn't have been there to affect their ministry. And so there's all that. And so you have two sides of this. You have the side where people are like, yeah, you should follow this because you got to protect yourself. You got to make sure those false accusations don't come, that you don't put yourself in those tempting situations. But then you have the other side that say, well, when you follow this rule, it takes away opportunities for females. So if you want to use the example of that 2019 case, took away the opportunity for that female trainee to be trained to be an officer of the law. And so you have two different sides about this. And so that's a little bit of a backstory for you
Is
here.
there no other way that she could have been trained?
I'm sure she is, but
Okay. I mean, so potentially did, but yeah.
yeah,
But there are probably other ways that she could have been trained.
yeah.
Yeah.
I'm not sure how big this department was. I didn't write down the city that it was in, but maybe, there probably was female officers that she could have trained under as well. But so that all said, Mark, what about you? Do you follow the Billy Graham rule, and why or why not?
So, well, first of all, I mean, like as Christians, we have strong convictions on these things.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember hearing about that with Mike Pence, and he was like mocked and ridiculed in the media and everything. And as Christians, like we want to establish everything we do and have like 2 to 3 witnesses around us at all times so that
Yeah.
hey, if there is a false accusation, there's 2 other people that can stand up and say, hey, that's not true. I was there, nothing happened,
Yeah.
things like that. And yet, when you put things into practice in the real world, a lot of times things are really messy. A lot of times, well, now you have a Christian training, you
Mm.
know, a guy training a gal, and there's alone time and all those different things. And so when you go out in the real world and you apply the Billy Graham rule, a lot of times it's just messier. A lot of times Christians are faced with, hey, if I follow this rule and I speak up about it, and hey, this is my conscience, this is my conviction, you could lose your job potentially. You could get a
Okay.
loss. And so it's a lot messier when people apply it in real life,
Okay.
is what I would say.
We just had some technical difficulties there. Mark's microphone wasn't working. So back at it though. I'm going to leave that part in because I want to point out that Mark did not answer the question, which is something normal. Mark, do you live by the Billy Graham rule? Do you apply it to yourself? Do you live by it? Yes or no? Let's start with
Yes
yes
or
or
no.
no. Yes.
Well, that's like saying, should you pay taxes to Caesar? Yes or no. But I would say, I try to,
Okay.
but functionally, when we get into jobs and into everything like that, one of the things I did was work at a group home with kids
Mm.
with just intense emotional problems and everything. But you're there with one other staff person, and so it's you, one other staff person, and a bunch of kids.
Yeah.
And so it's a good thing when you have the kids around and stuff, but a lot of times, hey, the kids are in their rooms. Well, now and this would be in a house, so you have a living room, a kitchen area, a dining area.
Mm.
And so there's challenges and difficulties there even as a Christian.
Okay.
Mhm.
So you just, when you try your best to follow it, but it's not, I agree. It's not.
Yeah, and functionally, I mean, and even now, like I work with adults with disabilities,
Mm.
and so there's an apartment that has 5, 6 adults in it, and so you're helping
Yeah.
an adult, hey, make dinner or everything. They've got a disability and everything, and
Mm.
so there's even questions with that, and how do I wrestle through that? And so I would just say it's pretty messy. It's a good rule, like I love it.
Yeah.
Um, Applying it in life can be pretty messy for Christians. And so, I mean, when I'm doing that, I'll leave the door open.
Mm.
I'll, try to let other people know, hey, I'm going over here to this other place and
Yeah.
things like that. But yeah.
So you're not necessarily against it then. You see it's hard to apply in everyday life.
I would say, yeah, I mean, if we look at it and just say, hey, how do I apply this in my life? How do a lot of
Yeah.
Christians apply it in their life? Especially like in social work or in certain jobs, it can get pretty messy. Or
Yeah.
even just take the police officer, situation there.
Yeah. I think,
But then following that rule, there could be a cost to it even.
Mhm.
And so you're like, hey, do I want to pay that cost, or it could be, hey, I'm going to not go into this field, into this area. I'm going to
Yeah.
go into a different job or career. I mean, a Christian
Yeah.
could make that decision too.
And when it came to this case too, I didn't look too long for it, but I could not, this case was in 2019. I could not find any results from what the verdict was for the case and everything. But I know for myself, just going to that really quick, I think people who follow this rule, one of the things that they quote from scripture a lot is 1 Thessalonians 5:22 in the King James version, that says to
Yeah.
avoid the appearance of all evil. And you can't use that scripture because if you look at any other interpretation other than the King James, it says to simply just avoid evil. And so the King James version there, it interpreted it a little incorrectly in that way, in the avoidance of the appearance of evil, but rather than it just to avoid evil in general. So that's one that's quoted a lot. But there are a ton of other scriptures in the Bible that you can use to really support the Billy Graham rule here.
Let me break into there a second,
Okay.
because I mean, we're both Assemblies of God, and Assemblies of God, we're built on really one of our foundational verses in our history. It's that verse that you just cited there.
Yeah.
Just talking to Bible college professors and leaders at college and everything, a lot of it was, hey, what is it? You're abstain from every appearance of evil,
Yeah.
avoid every appearance of evil. And so like historically in the Assemblies of God, hey, that means that we're not going to go to events that serve alcohol. We're not going to go to the movies because, hey, there's a lot of worldliness there. And there have been times, there have been Assembly of God churches that said, hey, there's the Christian movie and then there's the secular movie. Well, we're not even going to go to the Christian movie at the theater because, there's that appearance of evil there with the movie next to it.
But that's
and
very,
so even like dancing, we would have used that verse to say, hey, dancing, we're going to avoid even those things.
But how long ago was that though? That's not today's Assembly of God.
And if we're being honest, I mean, today's Assemblies of God is kind of drifting away from that. And there's some wisdom in doing it, and then we can take it too far and everything.
Yeah. What do you think about that misinterpretation of the King James, that the King James version of that scripture? Because no other translation, if you look at the original language, it wasn't appearance. It was just evil outright. And so that applies to everything in life, like avoid evil, but it does give it a little bit of a different definition too.
Well, and I would take that verse and apply it more to holiness, like as Christians, and even just the Billy Graham rule.
Yeah.
We're called to be holy. We're called to be different from the world. We're called to be separate from the world. And sometimes the world will see that and they'll mock, they'll ridicule. But no, we're set apart to serve God.
Yeah.
And our life should be different than the world. The way that they speak, it should be different. The way that the world behaves, our lives should be different.
Yeah.